Are you breaking the law with your GMRS radio? If you're a GMRS user, or if you're thinking about becoming one, you need to watch this entire video because I'm going to go over all the different rules of GMRS and the ones that people tend to ignore the most. I'm going to reference the actual law, but don't worry, I'm not going to use any confusing legal jargon. I'm going to break it down in plain language so that anybody can understand. So I've broken it down into 5 foundational rules that you actually need to know to use GMRS. There are more than that, but these are the 5 that'll get you on the air and keep you legal. I'm going to expose the rule that people break the most often, and at the end, I'm going to tell you what kind of consequences you might face if you decide to break the rules. My goal is to make you a confident and legal GMRS operator. But before we get started, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and it ensures that we get to continue doing this into the future. GMRS is governed by the FCC under the Code of Federal Regulations, specifically Title 47, Part 95, Subpart E. Now, you really don't need to know all of that, and I'm going to put a link to that in the description so you could read it on your own if you want. So I'm going to cover the 5 rules that you absolutely must know to operate, and there are more than that, so make sure to review the law, but these are the 5 that most people are going to run into day to day. Rule number 1. You need a license to transmit on GMRS. Although no test is required, you still have to go through the process of getting licensed to be legal. I'll drop a link in the description for a guide that I use to get licensed on GMRS and the link to the FCC's website where you can actually do that. The license covers your entire family. I've said it before, but basically everybody but your cousins, and yes, your siblings, your grandparents, your kids, like everybody except your cousins. And it's pretty approachable from a price perspective. It's only $35 and it covers you for 10 years, so the barrier to entry is pretty low. After reviewing some of the case history, I did find some people that were fined for not having a license but operating on GMRS. Rule number 2, station identification. You must identify yourself with your FCC-issued call sign. So at the end of a conversation and at least every 15 minutes, you have to identify yourself with your call sign. So this rule is really not that difficult to follow, and honestly, if you break this rule, the FCC is not going to come kick down your door, but somebody might correct you on the air, which is not really a big deal. Now, if you're going out on your local channel, meowing and annoying everybody, or jamming people, as somebody might call it, then somebody might be bored enough to try to find out who you are and get you issued a violation. But after reviewing most of the case history out there, you'd probably just end up with some sort of warning. Now, this next rule has been updated in the recent past, so you might hear something and think, there's no way, that's not allowed, but I promise you this is the way it currently works. So rule number 3, permissible communications. You are allowed to use GMRS for personal communications or even business. Now, if you're using GMRS for business-related communications, every single person that's using it has to be individually licensed. So you can't just have a business license that covers everybody in your business. Each person has to get the license, but it's still a pretty good deal. Depending on the size of your business, it might be more efficient for you to just go ahead and get a business license, which we're not going to cover in this video. That's a whole nother topic. But if you have a small business and people are already licensed on GMRS, this would be an excellent way to use it. Before we move on to what you can't do, you can use GMRS for emergency communications. You can use it for helping motorists. There are a lot of things that you can use it for. But the big things that you can't do are transmitting to a general audience, broadcasting, kind of like a radio station that you might tune up in your car. That's not allowed. Lastly, using any codes or ciphers that are supposed to obscure what you're talking about. All right, let's move on to rule number 4, power restrictions. Your power is tied to the channel tier that you're operating in, and there are 3 channel tiers. The first one is for your handheld units. The second tier is going to be for your FRS or low power, and the third one is going to be for mobile, base stations, and repeaters. For your handheld channels, so that's channels 1 through 7, you're allowed up to 5 watts. And then for your FRS low power channels, and that's 8 through 14, you're only allowed to use 0.5 watts because you're sharing that band with the FRS users. And then channels 15 through 22, you can use up to 50 watts depending on your use case, but if you have a repeater or a mobile station, you're allowed to use up to 50 watts. Now, there's a slight nuance there about base station versus fixed station, because a fixed station is only allowed to use 15 watts, but that's pretty much a matter of intent. So if you intend to only communicate with other fixed stations, then your station is a fixed station and limited to 15 watts. But for the most part, people would claim that their stations are for mobile use, and that way they get 50 watts. Before we go into the final rule that everybody seems to be breaking, I want to take a quick break to introduce you to our sponsor, which is me. I'm the sponsor. So I run a company called Mad Gear. I make tools and products which help people prepare for emergencies. So the biggest way that you could support Mad Gear is by downloading our app and becoming a member. We have developed our app ReadyPlan specifically to be an amazing tool for emergency preparedness. And of course, a big part of emergency preparedness is communications like GMRS. So if you want to get your communications plan in order for emergency preparedness, go ahead and download ReadyPlan. All right, back to rule number 5. Here's the rule that people break the most often. I've covered the basics, and now I want to talk about equipment certification. Every device that's used on GMRS frequencies has to be Part 95 certified. So what does that even mean? So if you're an amateur radio operator and you have your fancy schmancy handheld unit that can tune up any frequency you want, including GMRS frequencies, and has the right power requirements, you're not allowed to do that. Do people do it though? Absolutely. You might be asking yourself, so what? Is the FCC gonna come kick down your door? Well, here's what could happen. You could be levied fines of up to $10,000. You could have your licenses revoked. You could become a federal criminal if the FCC wanted to prosecute you. But let's take a quick look at case history to see what really happens. So in the history of enforcement, most of the times whenever somebody gets nabbed by the FCC, it's complaint driven, or it's because of malicious interference. Now I'm gonna save all of the different case history for another video. And a quick disclaimer, this video is for informational purposes only. I'm not suggesting that you should break the FCC's rules. I'm just telling you the facts. Oftentimes people who break GMRS rules, they aren't prosecuted. Get your license, use your call sign, make sure you use the correct power, and use a radio that you are allowed to use, so an actual Part 95 certified radio. Oh, and of course, make sure that your content is correct whenever you're on the waves. So don't forget to like and subscribe, that really helps the channel, and if you want to help us out even more, go buy a contingency planner, go download our app, ReadyPlan, and make sure that you have an emergency plan for your family. Thanks for watching.